back to another episode of Slice of Life with Project Shira. What used to be a different moniker once was a psychotherapeutic improvement multimedia project to solve problems, challenges, obstacles of life, and so on and so forth, as well as some improvement process to reach high ambitions that we set for ourselves as well as those around us. And it's it takes the form nowadays through an extensive manifestation of the self in various ways, including ideas, concepts, analogies, and so on and so forth. On different platforms: Spotify, YouTube, Patreon, Twitch, so on and so forth. And it's about 4 or 5 days a week. Schedules on YouTube playlists. You will find that every single day has a different playlist, except for Wednesday and Saturday, which is only for our bonus feature specials. And so, without further ado, today's is a Friday episode. Once again, focusing more on the form of medium. The medium that we're using, of course, is online information, administrative stuff, and research. And so we're going to focus today, continuing off of what I plan to be probably the last. Here's the deal, right? So if you can't see on the top left, my left is your right is my left. We're going to continue off with religious, mythological, spiritual, symbolic, and so on and so on. So on and so forth. Not in the talking. I just got up from bed. I took an hour nap because I was just tired. But that's we're going to be continuing off on that tangent. But I want to stop for a moment because there's other important tasks that we've got to get out of the way because it's kind of been building up. And also I think the major point is that for the past 3-4 episodes I've already been doing a lot on continuously on spiritual, mythological features and so on and so forth. So I don't want to continue off of this without a hiatus, because just looking at the number of tab topics we have, we're going to just we're going to break off for about 2-3 weeks, which is just 2-3 episodes, really 2-3 recordings, and talk about other things that need to get done on the Friday series, which has to do with cloud drives, and it turns out that I have more fucking clutter to get through. There's some of that stuff here that I said I didn't really want to talk about ever again in terms of LinkedIn for at least half a year. I still have more tabs on LinkedIn, it turns out, and I still have more tabs on Microsoft OneDrive and cloud. So unfortunately, we're going to have to go and revisit those topics once again. And income tax has reared its head once again. I thought I was done with it. I thought I could just pay my accountant, and not have to discuss it any further. But it's come back again, and so we're going to have 1 or 2 episodes on LinkedIn, careers, a little bit of networking, a little bit of Microsoft Office again, a little bit on also income tax again, unfortunately. But once we're done that, it's going to give a good break, because again, for I think 4 episodes back to back now, which is the equivalent of a whole month, right? Because we only do 1 Friday episode per week, because there's only 1 Friday a week. And so as a result, this entire month, as of the releasing of these episodes, have been focused entirely on one specific domain or a variety of subdomains related to the core, which is spirituality, religion, mythology, history, fables, and so on and so forth. So we'll revisit this. We'll come back to this. Today's going to be the last episode for the next month. For the next 2-3 weeks, and then we'll come back to this story. Okay, not a whole month. We're going to come back to this within 2 to 3 weeks. We'll be back on this. But it's just too much back to back of the same thing. And in addition, I've got some annoying stuff I need to get rid of, because there's still more. Turns out, unfortunately, I do have more career-related stuff, more administrative related stuff, more income tax and finance and stuff like that I have to get through. All right, so let's just kind of cherish this in the last moment, because I do enjoy making this series very much. I mean, not this series, like this particular domain of the series, right? And the domain is, of course, we talked about largely concepts, spirituality, persona, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we'll continue where we said we were leaving off with Durga. And Durga is, if you can't tell, right? Again, this is related to a Hindu goddess. So this is Hinduism right here. And I have a colleague, several colleagues actually, who are Hindu. And myself, having grown up in like a part of a district we call Leslieville, we have like a little India on the side over there. It's like, if you know, it's Gerard and Coxwell. And I've always been surrounded by that growing up for the first, I wouldn't say, yeah, it's like the first decade, first 10 years. Now, I didn't really get as invested in this because I didn't spend too much time on this when I was, in terms of personal experience or anecdotal storytelling or, research or books, or just speaking with people. I did have people who were friends who were Indian and stuff like that, of course, Gujarati, Punjabi, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, I didn't dive too much into, when I was young, I didn't dive too much into the deeper concepts of Hinduism. I always kind of presumed that there was a lot of like connection between Buddhism and Hinduism, and so as a result, and also Confucianism and Tao. So between Confucianism and Tao and the Taoists, as well as Hinduists and also Buddhism, generally speaking, I had always presumed that there was a lot of similarity. Not necessarily the same core themes or the same approach or the same, stories, but the core themes are generally the same. All right. And so as a result, I didn't, having been myself very well versed, I didn't really choose to be Buddhist, I would say, when I was young. Although, no, actually I did. Partly I didn't choose to, and partly I did. Okay, I'm not going to explain how that came to be, but before I was even like a toddler, apparently I was already things that were done outside of my own will. And so having a fairly decent understanding of Buddhism, I didn't really feel the necessity to learn more about Hinduism because they share very similar core beliefs of general enlightenment, detachment, endorsing nature, and kind of removing the excesses. And generally it's kind of like the opposite of hedonism, right? That's kind of the general, very vague general take of Eastern philosophy and Eastern religions. That's the general direction. So I don't go too much further in this, right? So this is a statue, that's just the brand. Hindu goddess Lord Durga statue. Now, for specifically with Durga, we're going to talk a little bit about this because I'm going to try my best to get through about 10 tab topics. And one of them does, like I said previously yesterday, I did the recording, that would be last week's episode. And I had a lot of fun reading it. It's on Wikipedia, right? So we were learning more about, well, we weren't learning more. We had already learned more by Save the Tab. It was on Anubis. And in this case, we have a tab open for Durga as well. And because this is an area I don't have as strong of a specific understanding. I understand the general core themes, but I don't understand specifically for each persona and caricature and each deity or goddess what they personally, specifically symbolize and endorse. And in this case, of course, I do know now, but we're going to talk about that probably 20 minutes in or so because we'll get through several tabs. So here's a statue. It's like for $39.99, 4.6 stars. We're on Amazon again. Durga Murti idol, home temple, Pooja sculpture, Indian Diwali day, Mandir Pooja decoration. Okay, so go further down. Hand painted and skilled by Indian artists. Each Hindu goddess or Durga statue is carefully crafted, painted by hand, ensuring that each piece is unique and of the highest quality. This makes it a great addition to any collection of Hindu art and a perfect spiritual decoration for home, office, altar, shrine, yoga studio, meditation room, and so on and so forth. Going further down, made of durable, so there's materials made of durable polystone, this, and blah blah blah. Well, you know what? Let's just leave it. There's too much here. That's just a lot of it's marketing. It sounds a little bit redundant, so I'm just gonna stop. If we go further down, let me see if there's anything that's a little bit different. They talk about richness of Hindu culture, pride in representing array of statues, Lord Ganesha. So they're listing different names here. Goddess Lakshmi, Goddess Saraswati, Shiva, of course, and so on and so forth. Hanuman. Well, there was that rapper from Kerala district, I believe, who named himself Hanuman. Okay, going further down, and it was good. It was a great music video, by the way. It paid a lot of homage to the States. I think it was like a Philly rapper, like Project Pat. So it was very well done. It was very well done. They had even the chopped in screw, and so the slowdown at the very back. I mean, it was sick. It was sick. Really sick. All right, going further down, and a lot of people were commenting on that Hanuman kind video. There were people who didn't believe it at first, right? Because they weren't familiar with the cultural setting that's taking place. Because Kerala is generally a more like lower income poverty state, lower income like state of India, and over there they do run a lot of unconventional means of. So there's actually what I think it was called the Wheel of Death, the Circle of Death, or something like that, right? And it's a legitimate thing. It's for real. They really do that kind of stuff, and it's not just in that. Turns out also in different African countries they have similar sorts of entertainment venues that they run, and it's not like CGI. They actually drive up on the ramp and on a circus. So it's really skilled stuff. It's interesting, and it's great to watch actually. Well, I don't know if it would be so great if you have to be a trained professional, obviously, and stuff like that. But there's nothing like professional. It's kind of grimy, right? It is supposed to be grimy, and so you would say that they gotta pass on the skill set throughout the family. Anyways, that's just something that Hanuman reminded me of. Going further down, more statues here. Frequently bought together, discover similar decorative sculptures for your space, so on and so forth. I don't know the names of these, but again, if you can't tell, it's fairly obvious, but they often use, the cow is a sacred animal in Hindu and general in Indian culture, so you do tend to see some animals that are besides some of these gods and deities and figures. Another common theme that kind of reminds me, I spoke about in the previous episode, a statue that broke. It was this is specifically a Chinese derivative, right? This is the Tin Sao Gunyam. So Tin Sao Gunyam in Cantonese, if you speak, Hong Kong or Taiwanese, Tin Sao Gunyam, what that means is it's the 100-hand, it's the 1,000-hand Buddha of the Guanyin Buddha, which is usually depicted, if you've ever seen it, if you go to a Buddhist temple, is it's a maiden. It's a lot like Virgin Mary. It's not like that, but I mean, the concepts aren't similar, but generally speaking, forbearance, patience, tolerance, humility, and in this case, it's embodied the specific variant here, which is the 100 arm, the 100-hand Guanyin Buddha, and each hand, some of them are empty, but some of them actually carry certain specific tools, and they each resemble something like strength or valor or courage or so on and so forth, right? Or discipline and integrity, humor, and so that's kind of how it works. That statue that actually broke kind of reminds me of some of the statues that you see over here, because another common theme, as you can see, not only do they have like sacred animals like ox and cow, but we don't have that in Chinese culture though. In like Buddhism, cow isn't really emphasized that much, but over here something similar. You see that they do have multiple arms, and they're usually carrying a tool, and there's a symbolic representation for each of those hands. I'm not going to dive into what each of those mean, because I myself am not well versed. I'm not as well informed in terms of the significance of each of these tools. I couldn't tell you what specifically each of them mean, but that would be something that I look forward to. Like as I get older, I would still be learning more and more about this. So that's the great thing about time, right? And as time passes, you're only going to acquire more and more information. Going further down, base shopping trends, more statues of Anubis and so on and so forth. Product description, further down. And yeah. Supreme series, very popular color on the market. I don't know why they say this. Everything in Hinduism typically emphasizes gold. And that's just obvious, I feel like. Decoration, perfect gift, Zen, okay. Taste, okay. Product details, height, length, width in inches. Going further down, bedroom decor, home temple, so on and so forth. Go a little further down, more stuff. So you know what? I think we're just gonna stop it here. Oh no! You know what? This is interesting. So they have comparisons once again. Durga, Kali, Hanuman. They have listed names here. I'm assuming these are fairly small. Yeah, 5.7 inches. So that's probably about 15 centimeters roughly. And again, more names here because they're all about like $20 or so. Further down, Krishna, Radha. I believe Krishna is one for like good luck and so on and so forth, and prosperity, agriculture. And I think that's about it. I don't want to really dive too much because it seems like it's going to scroll on endlessly forever, and I don't want to do that. So, okay, so that's the first kind of tab down. So a little bit about Durga, basically. And we're going to revisit this again because there's another tab here where we're going to pull up some information. Okay. All right, next. So here we... All right, so... Sorry, there's just some technical issues. It's pissing me off because it keeps trying to show me that it can't ship to this address and whatnot. Like, you fucking stop popping up this stupid interface. It keeps showing the fucking address. We're not supposed to show that. It's so irritating. Alright, so Veroni's design. So this is basically just a shopping cart. Once again, this is a tab that's unnecessary. It's just open to the States, so I have no reason why I need to purchase anything from the US website. So, but again, you can see the listings here, the things that I wanted to pick out. So Veroni's design, Blind Lady Justice, Themis, Resin Statue, White Gold Finish, and then Zeko's Mystical Raven, Rose Covered Skull, Hand Painted Resin. So this is the one from, you know, Edgar Allan Poe, the Raven, and above there is Themis from Roman Greece, Athens. Further down, again, there's also an added Eshu from the Yoruba religion. So. But again, there's not much purpose to this, and actually I'm quite annoyed now because what just happened is now I have to edit this episode once it ends just to cut out the fucking address. But anyways, you gotta do what you gotta do. So let's just close this tab. And we didn't really get anywhere though because of that. If anything, just caused more issues. So. Alright, next one is also a shopping cart item here. But this tab is just showing the fact that we added something in, and we added a statue of Orunla, which is from, once again, Nigerian religion, Yoruba. So going further down, customers view this, view browsing history. It's the same thing. Once again, statues of Eshu, of Shiva, one of Durga on the side. Again, it's just added to the cart. Subtotal, you can see the subtotal is crazy. It's like 300 and 358. Again, we're not going to buy anything on this. This is just the state's shopping cart. So we'll put that to the side. It's just not very... There's nothing here to show really, if we're being honest. Okay, so this one's going to be a little more interesting because now we're going back to Roman Greece, and this one's covering Hades. And honestly, I'm not sure if it's the best idea to do this side by side with, because it's almost like a mixed bag, right? You know, maybe I should be covering all like the Hindu gods together in one episode, and then covering all the Yoruba religion, Nigerian gods in the other, and then covering all of like the Roman Greece and Athens in another. But we're not going to. I guess we're not doing that. We're not going to do that. So this is Hades, and Yeah, so let's just search it up, right? Hades, Greek god of the dead. And, you know, I guess the significant, wow, I still want to talk a little bit more about Durga, but let's move on to this. So, Hades refers to both a figure in Greek mythology and popular, oh god, I don't want to talk about the video game, but it says apparently it is, I don't know. Apparently it's a figure in a popular video game. I don't know what they're talking about here, but the Hades I'm familiar with is the one in mythology. So in Greek mythology, Hades is the god of the underworld, the firstborn son of the titan Cronus and Rhea, and brother to Zeus and Poseidon. Firstborn son. I have to digest this myself because it's stuff that I always found, again, this is like really, really interesting for me. Like, I love stories, I love fables, I love the kind of lessons that come along with. Son of Cronus and Rhea, brother to Zeus and Poseidon. I didn't know that Hades was, no, actually I didn't know that Poseidon and Zeus were brothers. He oversees the realm of the dead, is associated with the earth's riches. Okay, so here's something different in the realm of gaming. Okay. Hades is a critically acclaimed roguelike dungeon crawler developed by Supergiant Games, combining elements from the previous titles with fast-paced action and rich storytelling. Roguelike dungeon crawler. Makes Hades a significant figure of both mythology and modern game culture. I don't know what that is. I'm curious. I almost want to find out what are they talking about. A roguelike dungeon crawler. I don't know. Maybe if, I don't feel like doing it right now, because I feel almost as if the presentation of this different version of Hades might kind of warp or distort my view of what I've traditionally seen Hades to be, which isn't wrong. I'm open to being open-minded and seeing different versions of each of these figures. But given that it has, again, Hades is one of those figures like Themis and what was Eshu, kind of. Also the Lady of Guadalupe. So there are several figures here which have a really strong impact on themselves, on us. And as a result, Hades is one of those. I grew up seeing him as like, I wouldn't say a punisher, but there is some retribution associated with him, which I also embody, and that's a fragment of ourselves. And so as a result, I don't know how to describe this, but I almost don't want to taint that image too much, or taint that piece of the self that's helped us to overcome so much in our lives. I'm open to learning more about it, I guess. That's just like, that's a more lighthearted kind of thing. You know, it's literally gaming. Like, I can't take it serious. I'm sorry. Like, when you talk about video gaming, I can't take it seriously. You're gonna tell me you're gonna reincarnate Hades in terms of a different, like, rogue, like, dungeon crawler. My first reaction is, what the fuck? So it's like, what did you do? What did you do? It's like a historical figure of significance for like 2,500 years, and you turned him into some kind of like dungeon in a video game type shit. So I'm sorry, it just it doesn't sit well with me just now. But we'll definitely look. It's more lighthearted, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. Anyways, give me a good bad laugh. Alright. So, alright, here's on Wiki. Alright, Hades is in ancient Greek religion and mythology is the god of the dead and king of the underworld. Which, oh fuck, it just opened a new tab here. I misclicked. I needed that laugh, but give me a second. Alright, fuck. So excuse me. Hades, in ancient Greek religion and mythology, is the god of the dead and the king of the underworld, under which his name belongs. Anonymous. Hades was the eldest son of Cronus and Rhea. The abode Greek Underworld symbol is a cornucopia. I didn't know that. Cornucopia is like, if you know, it's like think of like a croissant. If you cut open a croissant on the side and on diagonal, and then you stuff it full of fruits and vegetables. I think typically I look at that as it's like a Thanksgiving kind of. For those of you who know, right? It's like it's used to symbolize like abundance of like food and harvest, a good harvest, a good season in like Oktoberfest and so on and so forth. Cypress, Narcissus symbol, keys, serpent, siblings further down. And then in Wikipedia, once again, that's just where the synopsis comes from. They just pulled it from Bing onto that. Okay. So we'll kind of put that down. I don't know if I want to go any further here. You can see a lot of images here. Hades and Persephone were assigned by their dog Cerberus. Were assisted by their dog Cerberus. That's the 3 heads. And a serpent tail would devour anyone who tries to escape from the underworld. So it seems like an eternal damnation kind of thing. That's the kind of symbolism that people use back. Well, remember, like thousands of years ago, people actually believed in this stuff. Like I wouldn't say people necessarily should believe in this today, right? I don't endorse believing in this today necessarily, but whether or not you can find a way to help you through life, through the lessons and the traits and the types of valor and strength and concepts that are embodied by such figures, that I can endorse. And I think that that's something that, because I do that myself, there's a story later on. I'm going to separate an episode after this, but Persephone, and it's work related. Hades, characteristics, family. So I'm not going to go further, but you can see a lot of imagery here. Old mythology. Okay, let's continue. Sorry, before we leave this tab, actually, there's something I do want to show. So it shows down here and explore more. Some common themes that I'm familiar with. So Hephaestus, right? Like these are very familiar names. I haven't spent enough time. If I was younger, I probably would have been able to tell you more about this, but I forgot a lot. There's a lot of stuff that I just haven't. Remember, this is stuff that I did like 2 decades ago. It's like 20 years ago. I don't remember what they stand for anymore. It's more than it was like 25 actually years ago. So it's like in the 90s. It's crazy to say that 25 years ago was just the 90s. That's insane. Or the beginning of the turn of the century, right? It's like 2000. Like what the fuck? It's been 25 years already. So anyways, so some familiar names here, but Hephaestus, Tartarus, Orpheus, and of course Poseidon and Zeus, which we spoke of already. I'm not a big fan of Zeus. Zeus was sick. And he's like fucking, and not in the good way. I don't mean like, oh that's sick, bro. No, I mean like sick as in he's like fucking. He's he's like P Diddy freaky. It's like Jesus fucking Christ. Like no, Zeus was a menace. He was a fucking menace. Hate him. Like I said, not all gods and goddesses and deities are to be revered. Like some of them were absolutely deplorable. Well, that's why like I said, some of them represent things that are totally atrocious. But that's just, again, this is history, right? This is anthropology, history, archaeology. That's the term that was missing from the previous episode. Archaeologists digging up in the village of Pompeii. So it's like archaeology, history, mythology. And so once again, not all figures are to be revered, right? That's why I'm again, good judgment is necessary. That's why you're selective. I'm very selective with who I look up to, okay? And it takes specific themes that are relevant, but I kind of omit the themes that are not useful, so, or not beneficial, or just not, not good, not things you should endorse. All right, moving aside. Okay, so next tab. That was fun. Like I said, well, not just fun. It's like it was meaningful for me, obviously. Once again, though, ending off that was a bit of a wild tangent. If you catch that reference, like wild tangent is like one of those like games that showed up on E-Machine when you got in the 90s, like kid pics and stuff like that. Like if but but like reminded of Zeus. Oh, Zeus. Zeus is such a fucking menace. I cannot express. He's disgusting. He's not a god. They call him a god. I consider God. I consider Zeus to be a fucking demon. It's disgusting. I'm not gonna talk about the things that in mythology he's been known to do. Fucking freak. All right. I'm gonna walk outside today and get struck twice by lightning. But yeah, you know, anyways, like moving on. I'm sorry, I just had to let that out for a moment. All right, next. So this one is a statue of Veronese design Eshu, Eshu divine trickster. Okay, god of the Yoruba cold cast resin antique bronze finish 4.8. This is just a different stylization. The other one of Eshu, he was holding like a voodoo doll, and he had a different hairstyle cut. This one, he actually has hair wrapped up in dreads, kind of like. 11 ratings. So this one's like not been purchased as much. 54, big figure. I don't think I'm going to read too much about this because I think we recovered it before. But going further down. More depictions, more mythological figures and warriors and archers and so on and so forth. Going further down, again more Anubis, further down, so further down. Okay, product information, 4 by 3.8 inches, Veronese design, item model number, customer reviews 4.8, bestsellers 2 million. Well, it's obviously it's a very obscure item. It's in like 2 millions in terms of ranking. Home and kitchen. That's hilarious. They actually put this in the home and kitchen ranking. I mean, home and kitchen category. I don't know. Is this? Would you have a statue of Eshu in your kitchen? You let me know. I don't know. It's 85. There's only 11 ratings. That's why it's 85%. Okay, moving on. All right. Next. So this is from mythopedia.com. I don't sure how this popped up. It must have been because I just searched it up on Bing and then I popped up a new tab from the search results. So this is where we learned a little bit more of the background and understanding. Yeah, this is very relatable theme. Once again, Eshu was another core influential figure for myself for our different personifications and so on and so forth. So Eshu is also known as a Legba or Legba, is one of the most recognizable resource gods of the Yoruba pantheon. Complex god with many facets and roles, he is best known as the trickster god and god of chance, unpredictability, and accidents. So it's like mischief. However, he is also a messenger god, a master of languages, and a guardian of crossroads. So once again, just following, he's right, I talked about this before, this is why I have an appreciation for humor, and why I was not very pleased at all in the 2010s when everyone was really fucking oversensitive, like snowflakes, and you couldn't, basically, people would barge into comedy shows and heckle you. Like you have a setting designed for people just to come here and have a good time, and people would come in here with their fucking rainbow colored haircuts and start screaming at the comedian. And get the fuck out of here. This is a comedy show, all right? You wanna, you don't like what they're saying, just leave. That was so that's probably where part of this influence comes from. It's not the only, but I can tell you I do have a lot of appreciation for humor and stuff like that. When used in the right ways, of course, I should mention. But again, comedy to lift people up, not tear people down, but still, it's a good way to lighten the atmosphere, right? When necessary, when done in the right ways. If done without malice. And that's why, there's also another depiction is like I said, I've already talked about what else was the Monkey King. I've also talked about he likes to fool around. It's one of the top kinds of Buddhist, I wouldn't say Buddhist, he's like a traditional ancient mythological Chinese thing, but despite all the power that he wields, the most important thing is that he still knows how to just, I don't know, wind down and chill out. And another one would be, I guess, Sun God Nika is another depiction of that. And I was going to pull a fourth one up, right? And this one is someone that, this is a, if you ever go, so there's a, up by Steeles and Bayview, there's it was historically started as as migrants from Hong Kong in 1995 roughly or so, and they started even before then actually, I believe. Yeah, it might have been in the 80s or further behind. So there's a long history to this temple by Steeles and Bayview. It's basically in a different region called Thornhill. Like I said, it's a Damsam Yu, and it's basically it's a Buddhist temple. Got a bunch of different Buddhist statues inside. Now, one of those Buddhist statues, among several actually, is this is very core. Is the Laughing Buddha, usually depicted by a very chubby, like a very short, chubby, lying on his back, and with a big smile, like a huge smile on his face, right? And so, like, once again, that's a depiction of against the capacity for freedom in terms of like, I wouldn't say entertainment. If I were to think, let me think about this, like, how should I word and describe it's the capacity to let go. But letting go is not exactly one, that's like two words, and it's like, what does letting go? It's not just detachment, right? Because it's also done in good, it's like joy, right? It's like pure joy and euphoria to a certain degree. I wouldn't use, I'm grasping for different, words and whatever limited vocabulary I have right now. My vocabulary is not what it used to be, obviously, when I was younger. But like, euphoria isn't exactly the right depiction. It's a little bit too much hedonism, a little bit too much on pleasure. But then I wouldn't also say it's just joy is there, but there's more to it, right? It's more expressive than that. It involves like some a combination of like detachment, like its capacity to be lighthearted, right? So there's a Laughing Buddha, and we have a lot of those like Laughing Buddha statues within, and maybe there's some irony in that, because when you go to a Buddhist temple, you wonder like, oh, it sounds like, oh, patience, humility, and like kind of like really, really like soft and nice. And then you see also statues that have the warlord, right? The Quan Gong is a warlord turned and revered as a legendary Buddha itself. So it's like, on one hand it's very serious, and on the other hand it's very like soft and loving. And then it's kind of, it feels a little bit contradictory to see that there are statues that at the same time also within the same temple and the same shrine have the Laughing Buddha. It's not contradictory, obviously, because the common theme is all about detachment, right? And they just represent different types of core themes. So once again, it's just like a different analogy here. Eshu is just another, you could say it's like from different continents, different cultures, different backgrounds, have different figures to represent different themes, historically speaking. Okay, so let's just continue finishing this. Is a god of dualities and contradictions. Once again, this is something that you can't tell. My project is completely in the manifestation of the self. A lot of what I do has a lot of paradoxes, but that's because life is full with lots of contradictions. I wouldn't say contradictions, because contradictions logic from a philosophical analytical breakdown standpoint. Contradictions are impossibilities. I would say they're more paradoxical than they are contradictions, because as you'll learn through life, like, many things are both true and opposite at the same time, and so it's not a contradiction as much as it is a paradox. If you want to use a scientific analogy for that, a good analogy for this kind of duality is like quantum physics. Dives deep into, like, at the microscopic level, right? We have different types of physical phenomenon, and one of them is superposition. And again, this is like going back into, when I was back in university and stuff, and graduate studies. But you don't need to be in graduate studies. You'll learn this even in high school. You'll probably dabble a little bit if you have a good physics professor who is like likes to really he teaches, or he or she teaches by really trying to engage the students. He may have a fun unit in there that to spark students' interest. So that's not always boring, right? So it's like a good instructor, a good teacher knows how to bring in the interest of their students. And so he or she may have a unit on quantum physics, which kind of like defies classical theories of physics. And so that's a good analogy here. Some of the features at the microscopic level of quantum theory are, kind of representative of the paradoxes of life, right? Even at the macroscopic level on a day-to-day, when you talk about conventional wisdom, a lot of things you have to use with balance and moderation, because in different settings, one thing that is right or appropriate is wrong or inappropriate in a different context, time, or setting, or audience, or delivery, or environment. And then you switch up all the factors again. So then you switch, the environment, the setting, the tone, the pacing, the, whatever. And then suddenly what was once wrong or incorrect is now suddenly appropriate and should be endorsed. And so it's very contextual. And as a result, life can seem like a contradiction, but it's really more like paradox. These are all true depending on the perspective, which once again is a good analogy to use when it comes to scientific literature, and specifically with the core quantum, whatever. This sounds a little bit too wishy-washy. I don't want to talk about it unless you understand what I'm talking about here in terms of if you're a physicist, you understand how this works. But it is the same general gist of things. That's why I pull this analogy. Okay. At different levels, right? That's at a microscopic level. We're talking here at a macroscopic level, but the same themes apply, okay, across different types of domains. Given that Eshu is a trickster god, Yoruba mythology contains many tales of his mischief, which depict him as alternatively malevolent and benevolent to humans. So he can be, awful and malicious, but he can also be really benevolent and kind. Within his diverse and sometimes contradictory domain, Eshu again. I've really thrown a wrench. A lot of people have been really confused by me, right? So, because once again, I tend to have a lot of paradoxical themes myself in the way that I manage life. Again, depending on the circumstance, I will do totally different opposing things because I always fit the current, whatever is practical or effective for the given moment or time, I will use it. And so it doesn't matter what particular, some things I'll do that seem completely opposing, I'll still do depending on the right circumstances, and certain things I'll do here I won't do then, and that can be very confusing for different people, because something, again, I've been trying to speak up on this a lot, but people aren't monoliths. But people, like, as of the past 5 years, like this past, like the 2020s, like this fucking generation, like they don't understand anything about nuance or context or anything like that. They treat everything like some kind of blanket statement, and it's insane to me. But so there's like no there's no good judgment, right? Within his diverse and sometimes good domain, responsible for sin and punishment, fate and accident, certainty and confusion, right? These are paradoxical themes: certainty and confusion. Also, again, if you're going to pull a quantum kind of analogy, that's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. When it comes to the wave function, the particles moving at a certain momentum, you can measure the momentum of the particle, but then you can't find the specific position. So I believe it's something along those lines. Either you can measure the velocity of the particle, but if you do that, the accuracy decreases in terms of its, you can't find the amount of energy that's carrying with it, and then vice versa. So you can only know one and not the other, and you can only know, the more information you know about one particular variable, the less you know about the other. And there's this kind of duality there. So life and death. He is also a gatekeeper, crossroads and thresholds, where he is known for Onila, the one who builds his house at the road of junctions. So road of junctions, once again, looking a good analogy, like growing up, like in just general pop culture or cliche or sayings that we use, like even like the 50s, the 60s, part of like parenting. There's a fork in the road, right? This is conventional wisdom. It's not related to mythology or religion or anything like that, or spirituality. This is more just related to like general advice or general core themes, right? Cliches or common speak sayings, which is there's a fork in the road, and then you've got to choose wisely, because this decision can take you onto opposing paths. There's an even better perspective, I think, which is for you to accept whichever path you take, a fork in the road. There's a good song by Green Day back in the day. I almost want to sing it, but I can't remember how the tune goes right now. You know what? I'm not gonna do it. If I try to sing it, I'll butcher it anyways. It's on it's an acoustic guitar, Green Day. But in one of the verses, the lead singer speaks about another fork in the road, right? And again, Eshu really perfectly as a character embodies this kind of dynamic about the kind of decisions that you make and what kind of long-term path and trajectory will take you down. So, okay, we got to move on from this page. All right, next. All right, you know what? I didn't realize that with all the storytelling that we went through and all the analogies and stuff, like there's just so much to touch upon. Oh my God, it's 46 minutes, and I intended on just covering all in one go, but I guess we're gonna have to do part 2 to this particular. So we'll cover Durga again, but it's like 46 minutes, and I don't want to keep on going further, because we'll have to do a second part. This sucks, but we'll have to do it again. Anyways, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll do a recording immediately after this, and it'll be like a part 2 segment on more on. If you can't tell, there's another tab topic here on Eshu, and there will be another one on Durga as well. So there's gonna be a part 2 for Durga and part 2 for Eshu as well. So we'll get back to this. Yeah, it just took too long. It's like 45 minutes. There's so much I can like compress. There's so many different like tangents and stories and interesting ways to like look at things, and again, they're all different practical mindsets to have. So all right, see you guys in the next one.